So we are back with Professor Avril Merlich, and we have some new subjects about 21st century theology and views to discuss. What is your next theme?
Well, the question is communication, human communication. We know that biologically our bodies change, our cells reproduce, and that from one moment to the next we are not the same entity, but rather we continually reproduce our cells, and we reproduce our blood and our oxygen, and everything is dynamic. How does one communicate between our species from one generation to the next, from one century to the next, from one millennium to the next? How does one transfer, even to be as good as the DNA, one's structures and one's imperatives to survive from one generation to the other? So the systems which have been able to survive over time, transgenerationally, are not the same situation, are not the same dynamics that communicate from place to place. If I wanted to call you, hey, I could raise my voice, I can use intonations, I can wink, I can wave my hand. But to communicate over 1,000 years, or to imbue a sense of urgency of how to survive over one generation to the next, is not so simple. For example, the nuclear waste sites in the United States, where buried uranium needs to be marked for 100 or several hundred years until the uranium dissipates. If it is not conveyed to generations in the future, they can dig up these sites and pollute an entire city. Or so knowledge, protocols have to be transferred from one generation, from one government, from one entity, from organizations to the organizations, and a system in place where those organizations can understand what the instructions are. In much the same way is the function of ritual, and the function of prayer, and of tradition, and of morality. These are guidelines of what existed before, what was important for the group structure in the past, and how they were able to create the non-family group, and how they were able to transmit ideas and fraternity and trust and skill sharing amongst groups and over time. It is not a simple task, and many nations, many superpowers fell by the wayside, failing to maintain techniques that they employed, that they used, but they did not understand its critical function, and so they let it go. So I am concerned that critical ideas that have been the cause for humanity's great successes should not be let go out of ignorance or out of negligence, but rather they should be maintained. And not only maintained, but they should remain platforms on which we continue to build and to adapt so that we can go even further in our exploration, and that we are able not only to receive insight into the past and into what motivated the past, but also to be able to send messages to the future.